update night, and all you have are Greg and I. Has anybody noticed, by the way, how good Greg
the B team.
the B team. Look at how good Greg looks. Greg has used the pandemic to get in amazing shape. Congratulations, Greg. When do you leave for your 100-mile or 1,000-mile, whatever it is, ride across Iowa?
July 23rd.
Greg will be gone the whole week, riding across Iowa. You know, famous for its mountain ranges of piles of corn as they go across the state.
River to river.
Well, I just want to go through a couple of the cases. I want to hit first. Let me get to our listings here. I want to first talk about GO, the DV 2021, because that's a lot of people listen about that. They're very involved in that. And everybody knows the judge moved the hearing from the 13th to the 19th. And we are, obviously earlier the better. We get that. The judge understands the time frames and the deadlines. And obviously the judge is predisposed to, ordering them reserve visas. And I, compared to last year, when, I think the judge was like, why'd you do that? Oh, it's COVID. We have such overwhelming evidence at this point that it's not COVID. It's never been about COVID. It's always been about not issuing visas under the DV lottery. Even though President Biden I think he was kind of straightforward about that, wasn't he, Greg, early on in his tenure, about how important all 55,000 DV lottery cases were. And today we have reports. Thank you to all of you who are reporting back to us on your interchange with the consulates. Today somebody said Jerusalem's not interviewing anybody. Well, they didn't issue any DVs in April for sure. We don't have the main numbers yet, but it's clear some consulates are issuing visas. Many are not. And, the government can explain that to the judge. Yeah. I don't know how, in light of his ruling last year, how you can classify DV as the lowest priority. The government contacted us today if we wanted to do an in-person hearing, and obviously we'd love to. So we may actually be in Judge Mehta's chambers on the 19th. No, but he might not want anybody in his chambers as part of that day. But we will keep you apprised. That's where we are in GO. Everything's filed. When we put in our final briefing in that on Thursday, I think it was Thursday. It was Friday. When we read the government's response, just to reiterate, I just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. And Greg, my favorite thing remains that we didn't sue each individual consular officer in every consulate in the world, and therefore we should be thrown out for that.
Yeah, it's almost worth going in person to do this hearing just to see the judge's reaction to that argument.
That was my favorite thing, is you didn't sue the individual consular officers in each consulate in the world. I will tell you, Greg, on some of our more recent cases, we actually have been naming the immigrant or non-immigrant visa chief in each consulate, so we don't have to deal with that stupid argument. But I kind of feel bad for the government lawyer having to make that argument. I'm not going to say it borders on bad faith, although it borders on bad faith.
You remember when we were young in school, and you had to come up with a essay that had a minimum number of words, and you were just counting what you could come up with because you just didn't really have anything that interesting to say. So you were just like thinking of all the dumb things that you could add to your to get the word count over.
When I grade my final exams on my law school papers, I do see that on occasion. How can I make this into a 20-page paper? So our reply was very succinct. We didn't even use all the allotted pages. We didn't need to. Arguments are made. So we're very, very confident. The thing that a lot of people are freaking about, oh my gosh, there's 2 other cases that are stuck with our case. Look, the judge sets his calendar how he wants to set his calendar. We have a lot of other cases with Judge Mehta too that are unrelated to the lottery case. And at the end of the day, he wants to make it a little bit easier on himself to hear.
I'm not so sure that's the worst thing in the world either, for him to basically hear other arguments in other cases. It's not like in these other cases that, we don't all have a common interest in getting.
There's a lot of the same arguments. I mean, I could almost bet you that the government briefs are basically the same in every case. And while there's different pleadings and different issues, it's good for the judge to hear it all at one time. I think we have a very strong case for our plaintiff.
And if there are problems in the other cases, we still have the independence of having our own case. So if there's like a procedural problem, for example, on another case, that's not going to affect ours the way we structured it.
Yeah, and we're not going to have any procedural problems. So we think we're really good. And again, I don't follow the other two cases. I understand one's a really big one. The other one I know nothing about. But people ask, well, people, if the judge grants all the cases, will we get behind all all these plaintiffs? Say, look, our job is to make sure that our clients have the opportunity for that interview. Now, here's something interesting I also saw this week in emails that clients sent us. One email said the lottery is designed to take people in case order as they are ready for interview, number order. Another email from a different consulate said the lottery are people being handled in random order for interviews. So I just got those over the weekend. We actually may file a supplement before the hearing and just say, I don't know which one's the case, or even better, if we're there in person, Greg, I can order a couple of exhibits and I can put them up. Say, Judge, here's an email from a consulate that says how people are to be interviewed. And here's another email from another consulate. And Judge, they're not the same thing. Is it any wonder that everybody is confused?
They are issued almost at the same time.
Almost the same time, within days of each other. So as you get random emails, folks, please, copy us, send it to us. By the way, don't send it on Twitter, all right? Twitter is on my phone. It's not ending up on my desktop. Email me. You all have my email. It's really simple. All right, so that's our Go case. I will just tell you on...
Why don't you pull up Ocker next?
Yeah, the Gomez-Ocker case. Look, we would have had a hearing on July 13th. I don't know. I just don't know. The judge has not forgotten about us, and maybe he doesn't need to hear. Maybe he's decided, well, I'm going to hear these same things in the DD 2021. Why do I need a hearing in Ocker? Although there is the issue of we need more visas, and we want class certification for visas to be reissued, but maybe he'll just issue an order without it. I don't know, but he hasn't forgotten. And here's where my sympathy come in. I know people are waiting over a year now. You have your lives on hold. Will I be able to get my visa? Will I not get a visa? Who's in the 9,000? Who's not in the 9,000? And it sucks. I know that. But you can't, unfortunately, force a federal court judge to make a hearing in any allotted period of time.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Chuck, that there's a way to kind of address that through the back door and because we can anticipate that potentially being an issue with Go as well. And when we explain in Go why the government's, why COVID was never really an issue, we can mention it was not an issue last year either. And nothing's changed, and we're at the same point. So you can kind of we can kind of bolster Ocker anyway through the Go arguments in a way that helps the Go plaintiffs.
You stealing my oral argument. When I asked, unfortunately, just for you and me, Jeff and Aaron can't be there. And when I asked Aaron, are you doing the oral argument? He says, no, you are doing the oral argument. I love oral argument. It's just so much fun. So the Gomez-Ocker, again, we've got your back. You've got great lawyers on your side, Paul Hughes and Jesse Bless and the folks at the immigration litigations. And these guys are all awesome. They got you covered. And again, I know it sucks to wait, but it's better to have the hope and wait than have no hope at all. And so hope. All right. Greg, do you want to talk about the AOS EB delayed litigation?
Yeah. So, and actually, after this call is over, this information I got today, I'll tell you about. But that case is we're in draft right now. We're basically there's two different aspects to that case that we're working on. One is, a little bit more familiar, which is the mandamus part of the case, which is just arguing unreasonable delay, and that the government has been, we obviously have September 30th is right around the corner, and they barely, we got some data showing barely any movement in the processing in that. But the more interesting argument, I think, is the arguments regarding the loss of the visas, and that contradicts congressional intent. And the research is a little tricky right now, because this is these laws this system was created 30 years ago, and trying to get at, congressional intent. And by the way, it was part of a very large piece of legislation.
IMMPact 90.
Yeah. So, trying to it's a little bit like get to there was so much happening in that law that finding the right, it's like a little bit like a needle in a haystack, getting them to this one little provision, 2 lines, basically in a 100 some odd page bill on there, but it is moving along. The hope is to have it, ready by the middle of the month, but we're, if it takes a little bit longer while we're trying to make sure that this is, is well written and, we want to present the strongest arguments we can for you. So we are working on it. I feel good about it. I know that, that the government, this is all I'll say about it, and I'll talk to more Chuck about this later, but I know the government is researching these same issues right now. That's all I will say about it. But and that's good.
That is good. And Greg, the reason we have to be super careful how we plead this is because we're going to be filing a preliminary injunction / TRO. Right. Because we need them to stop the problem now before October 30th gets here.
Right. But I can tell you that the Biden administration is well aware of this, and they are not, and that's all I will say about that.
And that's all I've got to say about that. Thank you. Next issue is the Kingsley case. The Kingsley case. Our response to the motion to dismiss / motion for summary judgment is due tomorrow. Zach and Jesse and Aaron and Greg Jeff are working on that. So that hearing, my guess is we'll probably, if the judge sets a hearing, which I think he will, because it's a big issue, is probably going to be sometime in early August on the Kingsley case. This is important because today everybody knows, let me know if you don't know, Department of State just randomly announced, oh yeah, all of those NIEs we approved for one entry, yeah, they're good for a year. You're good to go. Thank you very much.
That's very interesting, because I had that question come up today in my Facebook Live, and I had suspected that. I had just gotten back from vacation, so I hadn't seen it yet. But I had suggested, I think, that ultimately, at the end of the day, go to checktravel.state.gov to get the latest on there. But I presume there's something up there on that, or is there not?
I don't know if it's. What ended up happening is people got 1 year NIEs, and some random consulate in Europe told a lawyer, "Hey, we're doing this," and then it all popped out of everywhere. So this is the problem with NIEs. They're illegal.
Yeah.
They're just
making it up as they go along.
It's illegal, and it's evidence they're just making it up. Hey, we're changing it today. No rulemaking, no following rules. Just
they found a much more government-friendly way to actually make law.
Yeah, it's really easy on the government if they don't have to follow the rules laid out by Congress.
Yeah,
and so that's all part of Kingsley, and I still believe we have a very strong case in Kingsley. So that's where we are on that. We still have Kingsley plaintiffs, from my eye here for a second, getting their visas. And to make sure if you updating the database as those things happen. I want to let you know that the EB5 Fong case is in DC. It's before the federal judge. Judge Mehta is our judge on that. And we will reach out to him this week to see what he wants to do on further briefing or setting for oral argument on July 19th. So do we have the time on that hearing on July 19th? Greg, I can't remember if the judge set the time or not for that. I'm going to take a quick look at that.
That's on July 19th as well?
No, it's not. I was just making it up as we go along. Let me take a look here at Go.
That would be a problem.
Let's see what time the judge.
Well, that would be convenient if we're doing it in person.
It would be great if we were there in person doing it. There is no DC government lawyer, so minute order 1 o'clock. So it's 1 o'clock on July 19th. So
we should make Johnny Walker come to DC.
Yep. Nothing's better than DC in July, other than everywhere else in the world in July. Just about. If you don't know this, Washington D.C. is built literally on a swamp. It's not just the swamp.
It's the foggy bottom.
Man, the foggy. It's not called foggy bottom because it's foggy. It's bottom land. Hey, H-1B lottery abuse case filed. We are preparing the preliminary injunction as we speak. The goal is to file it by mid-month.
Oh, yeah, I have news for you on that one, too, after the call.
Oh, good. This is really interesting. I think we've got a great case here. I think the government knows they've got a sticky wicket on their hands because they got bamboozled, and they know. Now, the thing is, as we know, they were warned when they created this reg that this was going to happen. They were warned, and they blew it off. And maybe they didn't realize the volume that it would be.
Yeah.
But if
the conversation I had today was from somebody who was like, they were warned that $10 a pop is going to have consequences.
Yeah. And think about this. If they don't change anything, let's say we lose and don't change anything, how many applications will be filed next year? 1 million?
Yeah.
2 million? I mean, what's to stop anybody from filing applications? That USCIS is going to investigate them? They can't even approve an EAD in 6 months. Come on. So I think we got a great case, and we'll see what goes there. All right.
We don't have a lawyer yet assigned on that.
No,
one.
but we have served the government. They have been served. So we don't. But we don't. And again, when we talked to Brian Hudak, who is the chief of the Civil Litigation Division at DOJ in DC, this was last week. He was still assigning cases from early June. So it might be several weeks. But again, once we file a PI, they'll assign somebody. They'll assign somebody. So there we go on that. We've got the, let's talk about Milligan. Milligan, Jeff is our Milligan expert. We've gotten a lot of people out of London and Rio recently, haven't we, Greg?
Yeah, we in fact are we're running out of plaintiffs in that case because so many people have been approved on there. We have one person from round one.
She just got scheduled.
An appointment scheduled.
Finally, for August.
For August 1st, I think, really soon on there. And then round two,
Manila.
A bunch of London people, a Ukrainian person from round two just happened. But it's mostly Philippines, I think, that are
mostly Manila, right.
And round three has been moving along pretty nicely as well. We threw a big chunk of that as well. So it's largely becoming a Manila case.
Yeah, I mean, maybe at some point it would be consolidated with the other Manila case, but we want to make sure these guys, all these beneficiaries, get their visas first because they sued first. And that's kind of our goal on this. Yeah. So that's kind of where we are on Milligan. And we'll have a better update next Monday when Jeff is here on this case. On the Annunziato case, Judge Seaborg, I get, he's the new chief judge of the Northern District of California. Maybe he's just busy. I think it's frustrating government counsel in this case, who also happens to be government counsel in the Jacob case in California. And by the way, I did want to talk about this. The Go plaintiffs, I want to go back to Go for a second. Thank you for alerting us that the unredacted complaint had been posted online.
Yeah.
But that had been posted online because government counsel filed it in the Jacob case as an exhibit. That we believe is a violation of the federal of the rules of the court, because one, she should not have had access to that case, because she's not the government counsel on the case, and those are hidden behind a wall. And two, she certainly shouldn't have made it a matter of public record in another case, other than referencing it, as opposed to putting everybody's name and address out there. So names and addresses are required to be in complaints. This is why we redacted our complaints before we send it out to anybody, to protect your privacy. But this was government counsel that did this. And so we will be doing the needful in that context, just FYI. We'll keep you apprised. All right, going back to Annunziato, because it's the same government counsel, by the way, in both cases. That's still pending. I don't think any additional plaintiffs have gotten interviews. But I know a couple had interviews coming up here this week or next week. On the K1 Cairo cases, family-based, so the FB cases and the K1 cases, we know that the IRs, family-based, have all been set for interview. All of them. They're not any. They confirm that everybody's been set. And the K1s are still pending. So we will be litigating the K1s. That's kind of where we are on that. And that time frame is coming up here shortly. K1 Rio. We've gotten, have we gotten any K1 Rio interviews that you're aware of, Greg?
I'm not aware.
All right. I'm not aware either. Jeff's got that one. We'll double check on that and get you an update next week, and where we are on the pleadings in that case. On Manila, the same thing. The government is due to file something. And I think they have Ramirez, and we'll be responding to that shortly. Jeff did an update about that last week, and nothing's changed in the meantime. Although I will tell you from a behind-the-scenes process, Jeff has worked government counsel on this. And while we never get a response from government counsel about these requests, I imagine they're generating conversation on the government side of what's happening here. And the reason Jeff makes these requests is so that we can ultimately document to the judge, we've tried everything. You know, it appears that Manila, as an island unto itself, simply follows instructions from nobody except you, Mr. Federal Court Judge. So, you know, there we go. K1 Moscow, our clock is running. We've got, I think, another 15 days or so before they have to enter their appearance and file a motion to dismiss, and that's kind of where we are on that. K1 London, as we started that, we filed that last week, 10 days ago. So that clock's running. Government has not entered an appearance in that case either. So there we go. That's kind of just a quick outline of our cases. We're always looking for something interesting. Greg, I did have somebody contact me today, just FYI, who has an EAD pending since December on an extension. Obviously running out of time, won't be expedited. And so I sent him to see Senator Warnock, who got an immediate response from USCIS and said, well, our processing times are in October, so it's reasonable. So you can only file 6 months before an expiration. That's the most you can file. But they can take longer than that to adjudicate your case and leave you without status, without an employment card, without permission to work, without a driver's license. Yeah, I think there's some there. I think there's some there. Also, apparently, there's lots of people who are waiting on adoption cases for I-130s, which appear to be, you would think if you're adopting somebody from abroad, that would be an expedite.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed today, I saw an article that once again, USCIS is beginning to whine about the money. We don't have any money. Oh, we're so poor. We can't hire anybody. And yet, they've had authority for almost a year to allow premium processing on basically anything, and they don't.
Yeah. Things that would take 10 minutes of adjudicator's time where they can make $1,500 or $2,500.
You know, they don't. I know people that literally
rolling in money.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have clients that would pay $2,500 for an EAD in 15 days, and that's how much this means to them. And yet they do nothing. So this idea of, oh, I'm so poor, we don't have any money.
Because they spent $2 billion on an electronic filing system that they had to junk, and it was all premium processing money that they blew on it.
Tossed it out there.
Oh my God! What can the things we could do with $2 billion?
You know, I probably could set up a system that works in the government for filing cases electronically. I'm pretty sure I could do that for $2 billion.
Yeah.
Good. Hey, let's answer some questions today. We got some good comments here. Hopefully they're all good. I haven't read them all. Thank you, lawyers. We're not from God. Well, great. But what if the case? We will get a result. I got to tell you, I just don't see any way Judge Maida says no. He gets it. But yes, there's an appeal. Final judgment means dead end. Trey, you got to believe. You know, Greg, I grew up in New York, and I was a Yankees fan growing up. And in the 60s, the Yankees sucked. Okay, the Yankees sucked.
For 5 minutes.
Well, they sucked for a decade. I mean, it's the decade of my juventude, they sucked. And so the Mets came around in 1973. And the Mets, their motto was, you gotta believe. You gotta believe. And I got all the way to the World Series on you gotta believe. Even I, who was a Yankees fan, was rooting for the Mets. I believed. And they lost. The theory is not that they lost, but you gotta believe. You gotta believe. And so
they did like my Vanderbilt Commodores.
He said, you gotta believe.
End, and then they blew it.
You gotta believe more than 74. So you gotta believe. We got your back on this. All right. Thank you, Marco. We appreciate your good luck. James Rich, you give away for Judge Paul Friedman, appointed for the London case. Oh, Judge Paul Friedman is actually I'm not going to say he's a
Clinton appointee.
He's a senior. He's a senior judge, which means he's over the age of 70. I think is when judges become senior, if I'm not mistaken. Good judge, Clinton appointee. He's done some interesting stuff in his career. I think he's good. I don't have any problem with.
I've come to also not worry as much about who the president is that appointed a judge.
That's true.
If you have a good case, I mean, most of these people I think are at heart reasonable people.
Yeah, ask George H.W. Bush about appointees and how they end up turning out. David Souter will tell you all about that. But no, I think we're good. I think we're good on that. Also, NDC, embassy still saying generic emails post filing. Do you want them forwarded? No, we've got all those generic emails that we need. Saint Sent, patron saint of money lenders. Saint Sent. DV 2021 will go. Good luck. Be blending on 5 decisions. Again, we talked about this earlier. There'll be separate decisions on each case. I really believe that. They're not consolidated. They're just together for hearing. They're not consolidated. So we're good. Is a Kingsley win likely to help K1s? A Kingsley win helps everybody because Kingsley is directly attacking the failure to issue visas without an NIE or because of the bans, which now, so they've lifted, hey, we can't give you a visa because of the bans. And they say, we can't give you a visa because we don't have an NIE. That's illegal. And so, yes, it helps everybody, James. Helps everybody. Sonia Davitan. Davtayan. Well, what will happen is the government will put the court will put the government on a reporting schedule, so that once a week, every 10 days, every 2 weeks, the government has to come back to the judge and say, "Here's where the plaintiffs are. Here's what's going on." Remember, if you remember, we gave the government a complete list of all the GO plaintiffs a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
For the stated purpose that they could make sure those cases were, where they needed to be should the government lose the case. I mean, I didn't say that in so many words, but that's clearly why they would be asking for it. So I feel very confident that when we win, that the plaintiffs will be adjudicated by the end of the year. And if they're not, the judge will reserve sufficient visas for our plaintiffs to be granted. Because some people will be put into admin processing. We saw that last year. Some people won't be able to get to a consulate. So there'll still be people like that we have to be dealt with.
Can I mention something about administrative processing? Because we do need to be clear with plaintiffs what we are and what we're not being hired to do, because in the last couple of days, I've heard from a few of you who have been put in administrative processing, and and I'll try and offer pointers where I can on it, but we are suing to get your cases moving. If the case is put in administrative processing, the government is you're not going to be successful in this case making the argument that it's been delayed unless you can specifically show there's no reason for administrative processing and that it was basically just a pretense to delay you, which we don't think is happening on there. But that is a good example of where you should be hiring or working with your individual counsel on that. And there could be many reasons why administrative processing is happening in your cases. It could very well be there is a problem with your case that needs to be resolved. A question about whether you qualify. It could be they're just missing some documents that can be easily resolved. It could be that somebody is on vacation and they are doing a handoff to another person, and administrative processing is what they call it. But what I have told people is that give it when it shows it's switched to administrative processing, you can try and inquire and find out if there's anything that you can do to provide additional documentation to help them. But probably until you can show that administrative processing is going on for an unreasonable period of time, that you're not going to really be able to make the same kind of delay claims that you can make as part of our case. So talk to your individual lawyer about that. If you don't have an individual lawyer, you're welcome to make an appointment with one of our firms. But just a reminder that administrative processing that's not part of the services that we're handling in these cases.
Great.
If you have anything to
add. Absolutely dead on correct. I mean, we have given us a little bit of advice, but you'll never win a mandamus case on administrative processing that's been pending less than 6 months.
Yeah,
and that's not an option for K1. So you need your lawyer to deal with this.
Keep in mind, I mean, one of the reasons why the judges are spooked about doing anything is that it could be a security delay that they're not telling you about. Now, I mean, there are some countries where that's a greater risk than others, but the judges are reluctant to second guess the consulates on administrative processing until a whole lot of time has gone by. I did have somebody, for example, who came to me, and they are about 1.5 years in on administrative processing on their case. Yeah. And I had a different take on that than I would on somebody who's just started, yesterday.
Great. Thank you. Dead on. When are we going to submit the summary judgment motion in the K1 lawsuit? I will ask Jeff about that next week, and we'll answer that question then. Marina, I don't have an answer today on that one. Christopher Vasas, Penn versus Blinken. Response to the government motion is already submitted. Well, that's a good question. I don't know if it's been submitted because that's not my case I'm handling. But I will look that up. No, actually, I don't think the response is due yet in Penn versus Blinken, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's due next week. It's 3 weeks from the motion to dismiss, 21 days to file that response. We had one of our clients recently go through London as an example for their interview, and they gave us a write-up about this. I mean, what was the experience in the consulate? And says, look, behind the counter, they were full back there. Nobody had masks on. Everybody's chit-chat with one another. They brought in like 30 people for interviews. They stuck them in a little tiny room, not the main waiting area, but a little tiny room with 30 people facing each other. Didn't appear to be any, you have the mask on in the waiting room, but you go to the window, you have to take your mask off. Now, of course, I assume there's protection at the window. But the idea that the consular officials, all of whom have been vaccinated, are worried about COVID. Now, I will say this, Greg. I just learned today that there is a new strain in Latin America of COVID called Lambda. And it's highly, highly contagious and quite deadly. Mm-hmm. It's the version of COVID in Peru, and Peru has the highest death rate in the world from COVID, and it's the same variant that attacked Chile after Chile had put a huge push for vaccinations. Now, I don't think they were Pfizer or Moderna, but there is another variant out there. That said, as we've talked about before, there are many ways that we do these interviews that don't require physical contact. You can actually be in the same room. I can see you're over there. I got a big wall. I got a ventilator going outside. I can see you walk in. A lot of ways to do it. They're not doing it. All right. Let's see, Francois, your screen is blank. Have the faith. We actually started a little late today. Sorry. Do I have any plan to insist that, we talked about this, did prioritize all cases? Well, first of all, Ashim, one does not insist anything to a federal court judge, ever. But we have a plan, and I think we're in good shape. So we got your back here. All right. By the way, go will be a final decision. Although it won't be a final decision because he won't.
We've seen this question already
on September 30th, but yeah, we'll be there. Let's see, Linda Chechia Stewart. At this point, we'll not have plaintiffs for grade one. I don't understand that question. Do you? We filed our K1 in London.
No, I know what they're asking. They're asking if the consulate will have a list yet of the.
I don't know. If they've been served, it'd probably be a little bit longer before they have a list, is my guess.
Yeah.
A little bit longer. See, Catherine Elfatiru. Oh, we see Catherine a lot. Hoping you're good with premiers. Motion to dismiss it. Still within the 21 days. Already answered that. Did I see the government response, and was I 5 characters on average working on DV documents? I did see somebody quote that in the Rosales case. Think about this. KCC has 5 whole people working on what are still 110,000 DV cases. Seems to be an understaffing problem, Greg. That could easily. But haven't we been told that all the KCC does is collect documents? They don't do anything.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the problem with this is that you can make all the arguments you want about the consulates, but the MVC and the KCC in these cases are functioning at full capacity. They should not, they should never be the bottleneck in this process.
Yeah, and they clearly are. Patrick, we had a great 4th of July, and hopefully all of you next year will have a great 4th of July in the United States of America. After the reply is respond. The government, by the way, we file a response. The government then files a reply. Then the judge either has a hearing on the case or makes a decision on the case. I do not believe the judge is going to dismiss this case. We're confident. We wouldn't have filed it if we weren't confident about it.
Daniel, by the way, the government files a motion to dismiss in every case.
Yes, this is not abnormal.
It's not right. They're not like, oh, this case was terrible, I'm filing a motion to dismiss here, versus every other case where they just say, oh, this was pretty good, I'll let it go. On there, it's a matter of course. It's a scary sounding document, but it is. We haven't had a case dismissed yet in any of the federal filings.
So I think we're good there.
14 of these, we haven't had one.
No. So by the way, Jeff, good question. Does Joe negotiate? Here is what we have learned over the course of the last year or so in litigating here. The Department of State tells government counsel what to do. They tell him what to do. He doesn't tell them what to do. And the Department of State clearly has taken the position that since they're getting sued so much, they're just going to fight. They're just going to fight. So that's why you see arguments like, you didn't sue the individual consular officer, because they're being told to do that.
Yeah, it's not that different than if, Daniel, if you get sued and you go out and you hire a lawyer, the lawyer doesn't negotiate, with the other side without you directing him or her as far as what's going to happen. And that's essentially the case here. the Department of State is Joe's client. And Joe is, it's not that different than if he was a private lawyer representing them as an outside lawyer. He has to basically, he can make recommendations to them, but essentially they make the calls. So he's doing what they want.
Yeah. So the follow-up question here, the line. I read their motion to dismiss. Oh, you're getting out of line. Here's the problem. There is no line. What line? Have you seen a line? I haven't seen a line. Greg, have you seen a line?
Nope.
I haven't seen a line. That's the appropriate answer. What line? It's like people say, why don't these people just get in line to come here?
As far as we know, they haven't approved any case. I mean, we're talking about Manila right now on this this question. I don't think they have any adjudications that are, or more than just an anecdotal one since like early last year.
Well, we know they take people out of line too, because they're taking people with age outs, and they do take people out of line.
Right. But they've essentially done no work on any of these cases in over a year.
Correct. And so therefore they have a year's backlog. And is that just in perpetuity from now on? Hey,
and the other thing is, what's the explanation for them versus every other country in the world that has been able to move cases?
Well,
they're not moving them quickly, but at least our case. We have Milligan as and all the other countries in Milligan as the evidence that they can move these cases.
Absolutely can. I think that's the benefit to showing the court, hey, look, we sued here. Court ruled in our favor. They're adjudicating them, except for this place.
Right.
Why? So we'll get there. I do anticipate the judge reserving visas. While it is quite easy for the Department of State to adjudicate the plaintiff numbers that we have within the allotted time frame, there will be circumstances, I guarantee you, whether it's administrative processing, whether it's inability to travel, that will require a reservation of visas, and we're reserving them for our clients. While we think the judge should reserve every unused visa. It is the only fair way to do it for everybody. We want them reserved for our clients specifically. Can we file a mandamus before getting a final decision from Judge Seaborg? No. First of all, we have filed a mandamus claim. It's actually in the second amended complaint. It's filed. Part of the motion to dismiss, our response is, we filed a mandamus claim, Judge. The government time around.
Are they asking if they can file a separate mandamus claim? Is that what I mean?
Yeah, like a complaint. We have done. It's in the Annunciado case. It is literally pending before Judge Seaborg.
Right.
That's what the motion to dismiss is about, is whether we get to amend our complaint as of right, which we should because of the changed circumstances in the case. Right. So there we go. I think Casey may have started to respond to plaintiff's email sooner. Oh, well, there you go. Here's anecdotal evidence from LMM, not to be confused with LLM, which is a master of laws. But hey, maybe they're doing it faster in 2 weeks. I know they're still not taking phone calls. Let's see. If the motion to dismissal is denied, which it would be, will a notice of relationship be filed in regards to our case? I think what you're asking is, will the Manila K1 be consolidated with, say, Milligan? No, they're different courts, different judges. They're not going to be consolidated. Let's see. Let's see. Hey, Greg, what do you think about DV 2022?
I have no reason to believe anything is going to change.
No. So
except if the litigation might force the change.
We'll see. We thought that last year too, and then we had to file in November because it was clear they weren't going to do anything. And maybe we'll have to do that this year. We'll do that. Let's see. Bogota is still waiting. Yeah, I think Bogota is still closed. Last I heard, it was closed. So Montreal, no update from Montreal on if their K1 is any indication, they're going to have to be forced to interview people on the DV up there. KCC, this is actually an issue mostly for people from Iran who are designated Turkey. Turkey is doing DV cases, but they're ignoring people from Iran as third country nationals even with numbers that are lower than Turks that are getting interviewed. No, I know nothing about that other than the anecdotal evidence, but I can assure you I may be bringing that up in my oral argument to talk about this whole idea of being processed in case order as not being true. Okay. Let's see. And things we haven't answered here. We answered a lot of these questions. On AB5 expiration, do you think there's an argument for those ready of ongoing mandamus that the interview should have long ago? Well, that's a great question. Then that's something we will bring up before Judge Mehta. There is, somebody did contact me today. They did a little research, and I haven't verified it yet, that really talks about can Congress allow a program to expire with a competing statute that mandates the issuance of visas during the fiscal year?
I think the way to frame it is, if you look at DV cases by way of comparison, arguably the DV program expires every year on there. That there's an allotment and there's no rollover, and at the end of the year that program is over, and the next year's DV program starts the next day on there on October 1st. And in the successful litigation efforts, it made a difference if a case was filed before the expiration had happened. In other words, that's I think made a difference of why our litigation last year was successful, is because we filed it before September 30th. Had we filed it after September 30th for people who should have been issued beforehand but didn't, I think we would have been out of luck.
I agree. And the good news
I think we can make a similar argument that the EB5 program, while it expired on there, that if you filed for it in a timely manner and the government, using bad faith, I think here, failed to adjudicate in a timely manner, a judge has the power to rectify that.
So I think we've got a good argument. And we have Judge Mehta. So.
I think it's exactly the same as DV. They'll try and argue otherwise, but I don't think they're different.
Okay. Is there a possibility the hearing can be held in several sessions? God, I hope not. I want to keep flying back and forth to DC. No, it will be completely done. I can promise you on the 19th. We will finish arguing.
Yeah, and the judge is not going to need. I don't think he's going to need more than what he's allotting.
Now, here's Mike from Team Manila. What do you think about the head of an embassy posting Happy 4th of July videos with a bunch of, Mike, would you send the link to that to Greg and I? Maybe we can attach that to our motion for summary.
It's always good to show a bunch of consular officers
partying like it's 1999. Oh, please, Mike, would you send that? That would be great. Gio, good evening. Hope to hear this. We've already talked about Penn versus Blinken earlier. London only has 8 DV cases to schedule and go. They have no excuse. That's like an hour and a half of one officer's time. Easy case. Francois, how do you know there's only 8 DV cases? Well, 8 go DV cases. Maybe he went through everybody's name. I don't know how he knows that, but I don't have that number off the top of my head. Let's see. Government did okay. Yes, it's our turn. We're working on that in Ramirez's case. Daniel, this is a good point. What is unreasonable? Unreasonable, how long is it reasonable to be separated from the person that you love? I'm just asking for a friend. How long is reasonable? Even in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, I have an answer for what's reasonable. 30 days.
Yeah, because why? Because what? Because the FAM puts it, and it's actually in the U.S. code.
Yeah, they've said in their own documentation what's their target for what's considered a normal processing time. So all we're asking is that they maybe do it within 10 times what they say is reasonable on there. Most people, if they were getting them in under a year, they'd be pretty excited right now.
We're good. Let's see. We only got a few minutes left here. I want to make sure. When will Kabul be back to normal? Is that a trick question? Look, this is a nightmare for Afghans.
I suspect there will not be U.S. Diplomatic operations after the pullout. If I had to make a guess, I would think it's going to be a mess.
I can't imagine that the embassy is anything other than skeletally staffed. And if I were an Afghan on any visa, whether it's K or DV, I would be searching around for a different U.S. consulate that you might be able to get to.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is not going to be pretty. I'm old enough to remember the helicopters taking off from the roof of the U.S. consulate in Vietnam.
Yeah.
This is not going to be pretty. Let's see. Claudina keeps asking this question over and over and over and over and over and over again. Remember, the rule is if you ask more than once, I'll delete you. All right. We already talked about Penn versus Jeff's got that going on. Go back to where we talked about that.
It'll be good.
Yeah, really good. Yes, Lamb and Delta Reds do with Moderna and Pfizer, they're good. Not with the other ones. And the good news is you're not going to die if you've got a vaccine. Get vaccinated. Let's see. We will send out to each group copies of the motions and responses as we get them. We're also in the process of doing our website that will post all these automatically to that. Right, Greg? Greg, are you in charge of that?
Website's looking good.
All right, good. So we're pretty close on that. Let's see. Will the Go hearing be virtual in person? We'll know that shortly. If it's in person, then it is not broadcast, is my understanding. But if it's in person and in video, then it would be broadcast. But they don't broadcast federal court hearings.
Can I live tweet?
You could live tweet it. Greg could be live tweeting it. Could you submit a letter to just be asking to decide ASAP? No. That's an illegal communication, ex-parte communication with the judge, and we are not allowed to do that. Okay. Well, so here, if you're going to come up with Hussein, make sure you bring some excellent hummus up with you with the kebabs. We'd appreciate it. All right, and baklava. Don't forget about the baklava. All right, everybody. Let's see what questions we'll have next week. We'll be live. I'll be doing my Facebook Live
back on Monday
at 2. We'll be back Monday next week. It will not be a federal holiday. And for all you Penn versus Blinken folks, we'll get something out to you tomorrow with copies of the documents. Until then, have a wonderful night. Greg, stay on. We'll be ending our broadcast. See you guys later.